despite the much praised economic reforms of the present administration, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has downgraded Nigeria's real gross domestic product by 0.2% from the 3.2% it has forecast earlier. The Bretton Woods institution says Nigeria's economy will now grow by 3.0% this year, citing lower oil prices as the reason for the downgrade. Analysis of the forecast for Nigeria indicates that the West African nation's gross domestic product will grow faster than that of South Africa, estimated at 1% this year and 3% in 2026. This and more will form the basis of our discussion today. Thanks for joining us on Nigeria Today. I'm Ikaria Clinton. Now, with me in the studio for this conversation is Niyi Akinshiju. He's a financial and investment analyst and chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative. You're welcome to Nigeria Today.
Pleasure is mine. Thanks for having me.
And joining us via Zoom from Lagos is Shuaibu Idris. He's a managing director and CEO, Timeline Consult Limited. It's a pleasure to have you on Nigeria Today.
Good evening and thanks for having me.
I'll start with you, Niyi. We just had the downgrade by the the IMF, and they've earlier said, okay, it would be at this particular percent, 3.2, and now they are downgrading it by 0.2%. Can you tell us in clear terms, what does this indicate?
Well, it means that a projected shrinking of the size of the Nigerian economy. The gross domestic product is usually the reference measure, of the size of an economy. So whereupon in 2024, the Nigerian economy grew by GDP, real GDP, to 3.4%. So the projection of 3.2 was actually lower than the growth size of the Nigerian economy in 2024. And now, because of their projection or their conjecture around possible decline in crude oil prices, they are now saying the economy, the Nigerian economy, will also further shrink by 0.2%. That is from the 3.2% they projected to 3.0%. So what we are saying essentially is that the Nigerian economy is projected to reduce, to decline, to shrink, however I want to say it is a negative, but if by my own personal consideration and of course estimation, I don't think that would come to pass, because the truth of the matter is the IMF is using a one-factor consideration to make this projection. And the truth of the matter is that over the past so many months, the Nigerian economy has been going through a profound economic reform process. And we are seeing the impact, though it may not have been too manifest, but there are obvious impacts of those reforms in the fiscal and, of course, the monetary aspects of the economy. So, to a large extent, I don't think that singular factor of the price, reduction in the price of crude oil will be a major contributing factor to the reduction or to the GDP, as it were. Okay. Even now, the reduction in the price that we have experienced over the past 2 or 3 weeks, starting with what the President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald Trump.
We'll come to that.
All right.
Let's get Shuaibu's perspective on this. Now, Shuaibu, some experts have said the IMF is excessively pessimistic. Some say they're exaggerating, and of course they are not in tune with the present realities, the policy realities in Nigeria. What would be your perspective on this downgrade?
Well, first and foremost, as a chartered accountant and a financial analyst and economics, I will, take the cue of the IMF to be a bit conservative. It is always better to understate your strength and surprise people with the strength rather than to overstate your strength and then disappoint yourself by not meeting the target. If you look at the trajectory of our ecosystem, the economy of Nigeria in the last, say 18 months. Where did we come from? Where have we reached? And where are we heading to? This government started at a point when, there was the necessity of removal of subsidy in both petroleum-related products, particularly the PMS. There was also the necessity of removal of subsidy on energy pricing. And then there was a fundamental necessity and urgency of measure of exchange rate. Now, these policy measures, being that they are necessities and they were long overdue to have them, the president was courageous enough to implement these policies. Now, what were the consequences of the implementation of these policies? First and foremost, critical, factors or the concomitant features of the GDP of Nigeria, are the small and medium-scale enterprises that are operating in the country. Maybe about 60% of the businesses in Nigeria are under that spectrum. Agriculture, manufacturing, the oil and gas. These are some of the sectors that form part of the measures of the GDP. Now, if you dimension this sector and say, what has been the impact of the implementation of these policies, say, on small and medium-scale enterprises? There have been the debt, quite a number of micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises have gone into extinction largely because they are not able to have working capital arising from increase in inflation, increase in interest rates, and the issue of the adjustment. I don't want to use devaluation, the adjustment of the value of the naira. We have been hearing the news of quite a number of even medium and large-scale enterprises that have closed shop in Nigeria. Again, these are not, good signals, and these are the reasons why the IMF is looking at we need to tread on the path of caution. Now, fast forward, Donald Trump coming to power, oil prices. Today, we have a budget, this year's budget, the benchmark is $75 per barrel. As at this evening, crude oil was going for somewhere around 63, 64. Brent was going for about $66, $67 per barrel, which means that we are likely going to have lower accretion in terms of reserves or earning capacity of our economy to earn dollars, and we will have lower amount of dollars. What will that mean? We might witness devaluation. Last month, March, the National Bureau of Statistics brought out the inflation rate. We witnessed January, February inflation receded and went down, but by March it resumed the high, the growth to northward instead of southward, meaning increasing. So, which means inflation will increase, and chances are interest rate will the best we can expect is maintaining the same level. Otherwise, it may further increase. Now, with these factors, the only possibility of the economy to grow at the 3.5 or 4% that we are thinking is not a possibility as far as I see it. And the factors are there, and anybody who adds 1 and 2, the best you can get is 3. At best, if you borrow from mergers and acquisition, you could say it could give you 5.
We'll come back to you on some issues you've raised there. Now, back to you, Dr. Niyi Akinshiju. You talked about, of course, some of the policies that have been in place that, of course, we've been recording some, amount of growth in that area. However, the IMF has cited a decline in the global oil price. Can this not, have a significant impact on the GDP?
Well, the truth of the matter is we benchmark up to 70% of possible foreign exchange earnings on crude oil sales and the price quantity of crude oil. Again, we have also realized that over the years, in the past 3-4 years, we are seeing more activities in terms of income earnings, revenues, from the non-oil sector. Again, the economic reforms are also impacting the revenue base, of the Nigerian government, so much that in the last 7 to 8 months, what had accrued to the Federal Accounts and Allocation Committee that is shared amongst the 36 states and the FCT had actually jumped, by more than, sometimes by more than 70%. So we're doing at a high of 900 billion naira before the end. By 2023 ending, from September. From March 2024, revenue accrued to the Nigerian government had grossed 1.2%. At the point in time, it was, and in one particular month, it was 1.38. 1.38 trillion, So, and much of that came from the non-oil sector, from the FIRS, from tax collected, from VAT, value-added tax, and of course from the money collected on customs. So what I'm trying to say essentially is domestically, we are seeing the emergence of a new template, economic template. And what is driving the decline in the global crude oil market is principally linked to the tariff pronouncement of the American government, led by President Donald Trump. In the last 48 hours, we are seeing a cooling down of that position because it turned out to be an agreement between the American government and the Chinese government. The last we have had in the last 48 hours, even by the president, the American president himself, was that there was a need to de-escalate the tension. And because of that pronouncement alone, we started seeing green movements, in global stock markets. And on all the 3 stock markets that were going into red over a period of 2 weeks or so, we are seeing just by that pronouncement. So what it means is that even the American government are not so particular, about this engagement, and they are also worried. And as long as there is a simming down of that anxiety around the tariff system that the American government pronounced, we will also see a reflection, of that in the oil sector, because again, the American oil sector had also determined that they want the price of crude oil to be at a particular level, So while the president had encouraged them to produce more, so that they can flood the market in a way that it will force the price to go down, most crude oil producing companies in America are also worried about the cost input. So to a large extent, they are also rooting for relatively high pricing of the crude oil market. So what we are facing now is that the American government is also determined to save its own economy. If you are seeing the stock market crashing, and of course you are seeing crude oil crashing, America had become the largest crude oil exporter in the world. So it also needs money. It's not just about needing money. The companies, that are involved in production also want to see fair pricing so that they can recover their costs and also earn some revenue, as it were.
Now, back to you, Shuaibu. I know, of course, you've mentioned some issues there. You talked about, of course, from what I gather, all you said, the IMF might not particularly be, all correct in their projection. However, we're looking at the 2025 budget. The GDP growth projection, estimate was 4.6%, and we're at the projection that the price of oil, the benchmark of $75 per barrel. Now, how will this affect the budget?
Well, my dear sister, the impact is clear. Like I did say, the projections and the assumptions underlining our budget appears not to be anywhere realizable. Two or three of the major assumptions of that budget. We are in the month of April, which is the fourth month. We have passed literally the first quarter. We've entered the second quarter of the year. We are in the second month of the second quarter. Number one, oil price, like we have already said, is nowhere around the assumptions that we hinged the budget. The crude oil daily production is nowhere the 2 million barrels per day that we were planning to produce and sell or export. The exchange rate of somewhere around 1,500 naira to $1 has not been realizable. We are already in 1,612, 615 naira as at today per dollar. So quite a number of the assumptions have already, not been realizable. Maybe we were a little more ambitious. Maybe we were I don't want to use the word reckless, but we should have been a little more conservative than so aggressive in expectations. Yes, Dr. Ni has alluded to the fact that the revenues to the three tiers of government are significantly improved. But then, what say 350 or 400 naira could buy could be used to buy, say 18 months ago, you will need 3 times that amount, if not 4 times that amount. So has the revenue increased 5 times? No, the revenues have increased maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times. So really, the real value of the monies given to the 3 tiers of government has not significantly changed. Even the euphoria by the Federal Inland Revenue and the Custom Service saying that, we have generated so much amount of money. When you discount and you use the time value of money, you will realize that these guys have not even done much than their predecessor. That they have not done as much as their predecessor when you look at the real, factor of time value of money. So I think in analyzing, we need to discount, we need to be comparing apples with apples, not oranges and apples or grapes versus grapefruit. I think we need to tread on the path of caution when making some of these comparisons or analyses.
To you, Dr. Akinshiju, that we of course said some things about the budget. Now, but again, I know you've mentioned that some of the policies are yielding fruit. What exactly are we doing right, and what is missing? If this, projection would or should not come to, pass, because however we look at it, if the IMF themselves have said, look, if robust responses, if Nigeria does not, the one that if there's not robust responses, Nigeria may struggle to maintain macroeconomic stability.
Well, the robust response still has to do, still linked, to crude oil pricing, and of course, the IMF itself acknowledged what the economic reforms, are all about, and actually turned a verdict, of effectiveness of the reforms, either at the level of subsidy removal or at the level of harmonization of the multiple foreign exchange windows. And again, because of that, in terms of real value, there might have been a difference, but the truth of the matter is we have seen quantum leap in the revenue generated by the federal government and agencies of the federal government. Now, talking about real time is also either in terms of the time value of money or the real value of earnings of revenue is also relative, because again, if you start comparing to our PPP, the national PPP had also remained constant to a large extent. So much that even if we are talking about the challenges of revenue as it affects the total earnings, of the federal government, we start talking from what's happened from the global shock, that we had witnessed since the announcement of this tariff. I know for certain that over a period of 6 weeks, from February, to late March, the naira stabilized to a large extent. So much that at a point in time it went as low as 1,470 to a dollar. And that was also sustained for close to 2 weeks. That I know. And for another long 2-3 weeks, we're talking about 1,500. It wasn't until the Trump announcement, that we had this global shock.
Everything changed.
Everything changed. And so we cannot now, be measuring what we have done or what had returned to the economy or the value of the economy with what happened in the last 3 weeks, because we know they are impeached. I mean, they are connected more or less to the Trump thing. And that's why I'm saying even Trump himself is now concerned to the extent that his own pronouncement is affecting the American economy. And if it's affecting the American economy, the question is, you promised something to the American economy. You promised reduced cost of living. This is what you are giving us, And there is a consideration already that there will be a detente, between America and China. So I believe personally, that once we are able to agree on that, it's likely there will be a rebound, in the price of crude oil, which has been the major, focus of the IMF in their projections.
Okay, now back to you, Shuaibu. I'll just give in 30 seconds. We just want you to give us your closing thought on this issue.
Well, I don't have a divergence of opinion or views with Dr. Nee as regards, the timing of some of these things. However, this morning we woke up with statistics of countries' GDP. Nigeria is down from number 1. We are now number 4 behind Egypt, Algeria, and South Africa. Is it a good tidings? Certainly no. I think my major issue is the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have been courageous enough to take fundamental steps. We commend them for that. But they should also learn to be a little mellowed down so that they don't need to be too much on a propaganda. Economic policies usually are akin to planting a tree. You can't plant a tree today and expect to reap it tomorrow. The policies they have initiated, they are most welcome, they are timely. In fact, they were long overdue. However, we should have waited for at least 1 year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years to begin to see the fruit of this labor. This government should mellow down as far as propaganda is concerned, please.
That was Shoaib Idris that joined us from Lagos. He's the Managing Director, CEO, Timeline Consult Limited. Thank you so much for your perspective. And of course, here in the studio, I had Dr. Niyi Akinshiju, Financial and Investment Analyst, and also Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative. Thank you so much for coming on the program and sharing your perspective with us.
Yes, man. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for being part of the program. I'm Ikeria Clinton. Goodbye.